Well, welcome to another chat with Tim. We've been working our way through a little series around the stages of development as developed by Erik Erikson. It's the stages of a child's development right from birth, right through life. And we've been focusing on the key early childhood stages of development. And what it really shows is that if the right conditions are in place in a child's life so they have safety and connection, what then happens in them is they develop the life skills, the life internal attributes that they need to have a healthy life. But if those get disrupted, and that would be through complex trauma, then there's unfavorable outcomes that begin to be seen in the child's life. And why this to me is so important is because complex trauma often happens to somebody early in life. And so they can grow up and go into recovery and all of a sudden be wanting to learn all these tools to get healthy without realizing that there's some disrupted parts of their life that has resulted in deep wounds, deep beliefs, deep subconscious programming that they're not even aware of that hinders their ability to go too far in recovery. And so they need to go back and tend to those parts that were disrupted, tend to those wounds that happened early in life that set off all these negative ramifications. And so to me, a key part of people in recovery is when they begin to figure out the stages of development that were disrupted for them as a child and the unfavorable outcomes that came out of that. And they're able to go back and repair that. And so what I want to look at today is kind of the fourth stage that Erik Erikson talks about. And he starts it at about 6 years old up until puberty. It's called the crisis of industry versus inferiority. And so if you can think of a child coming into the world, they get to kind of school age, there tends to be in a child this tremendous enthusiasm to explore and play. There's a drive there. There's a curiosity that's part of that. They get home and they just want to do stuff. They have lots of energy. That's a typical healthy child. And that leads to a child coming to understand themselves, a child being able to organize their world, a child who begins to understand how the world works. All of those wonderful things come out of play and exploration and an enthusiasm that a child has about it. But what we want to see is due to complex trauma, that drive, that enthusiasm, that passion to explore, play, find out about life can get knocked out of the child. And we're going to look at that. And if it gets knocked out of the child, then what you find is the unfavorable outcome where the child kind of loses their passion, their drive. Now, they may still work hard externally because they have to, because if they don't, they'll get punished by their parents, because they are seeking some type of validation. But deep inside, internally, there's no drive, there's no passion, there's no enthusiasm for life. They're robotic, going through the motion, performing, but there's a deadness inside. There's a lack of vitality inside. And that to me is such a common attribute of complex trauma that doesn't really get talked about a lot. And so I really want to explore it with you. So what knocks out this enthusiasm in a child, this drive, this passion for life? What causes them to kind of begin to lack an industry and a drive? So what they found out is basically emotional neglect, complex trauma. So when a child's emotional needs aren't met, their need for acceptance, for validation, for nurture, for connection, for authenticity, all of those things aren't met, the child begins to feel alone. They lose their internal spark, their soul. Something is not being fed in their soul. And so something's dying inside because of that. And they lose their will to engage in the world. Then a lack of purpose or connection. So when a child connects, they then see other people who are connected to life, motivated in life, find meaning in what they do, and that as a role model gives them a sense of drive and purpose. But when they are kind of left all alone and they don't feel connection, they feel abandoned, they feel nobody cares for them, what's their purpose? They don't know their purpose. They don't have a drive to find out their purpose. They just feel sad. They feel not good enough. And they just lose all motivation. And then if a child grows up with constant criticism or unrealistic expectations, so it doesn't matter what they do or how well they do it, it's never good enough. Somebody always finds fault with it. They get punished for it. And that then causes a child to fear trying anything because they're going to get criticized. They're going to fail. There's going to be a punishment. And so just stop being motivated. Stop trying. Don't put yourself out there because it only leads to pain. So that can knock it out of a child. And then if a child never gets validated, never gets encouraged in life, so they're trying different things, and as children, they don't do everything perfectly. The first time they're a bit clumsy, they fail a bit, but if nobody encourages them, validates them, says you have potential, I think you're good at this, they feel invisible, they feel, oh, well, what's the point of doing this anyways? If nobody cares about me, so why even try? And so without validation, without reinforcement and encouragement, they just soon lose motivation. And then when they go through experiences where they do fail and they're hurting inside, so they're struggling at school, they're struggling in friendships, socially, or they're struggling in learning new physical skills, and they know that they just made a mistake, they failed, and nobody's there to help them learn from it. Nobody's there to help them realize this isn't the end of the world. We can learn from this. We can repair this. They begin to get to the point where failure just means more pain because you can't resolve it. So don't try anything where you might fail. And the fear of failure begins to take over. And if they fail enough, it's like, if I try it, I'm going to fail anyways. So don't even try. I can't do this. And then if a child grows up where they're constantly being compared to a sibling, a cousin, somebody else, and they never quite measure up to the other people. They always are made to feel inferior, not good enough, less than. Again, the child goes, no matter what I do, I'm not good enough. I always get kind of criticized. I get made to feel inferior to everybody. So why try? I need to protect myself from this constant criticism, comparison. And so let's just lose all motivation. Or they grow up in a home where parents are just super controlling. And so they don't allow a child to develop autonomy. They don't allow a child to make decisions, to try new things, to head off in a direction that interests the child. They try to micromanage every little thing that a child does. They don't allow a child to explore because they're afraid the child might fail. They don't allow a child to try things because they don't think there's enough status in that. They don't think it's within the family, kind of what the family would approve of. And so the child is just, everything they go to try, their parents, because of their control, shut it down. And so after a while, it's like, okay, I give up. I'm not going to try at all. And so their motivation is gone. And then a child who's in constant stress, constant danger due to abuse, due to violence in the home, due to just constantly feeling very, very unsafe, the brain is in survival mode. And when the brain is in survival mode, it's not worrying about exploring. It's not concerned about playing. Its main priority is, I got to survive. And so a high-stressed child isn't a child who's able to play and explore. They just survive. And that erodes motivation in that area. And then the final one is loss of hope. And we've talked about this. So a child has this tremendous capacity to hope, So I feel neglected, I feel not loved, but maybe if I try this, then mom and dad will love me and connect with me and meet my needs. So they get their hopes up and they try, but then mom and dad don't connect with them and meet their needs, and their hopes get dashed. But the child hopes again, well, maybe here's option B, I can try this. And they try that and get their hopes up again. And then doesn't happen, their hopes get dashed. Over time, as the child goes through option after option, get their hopes up, have their hopes dashed, they get to the point where they go, why hope? Every time I hope, my hope gets dashed. So now not only do my needs not get met, I have the pain of getting my hopes up and having them dashed, double pain. And so let's just stop hoping. Let's just stop putting myself out there. Let's just stop trying to get my needs met. Let's just kind of retreat into this self-defense cocoon where I'm not going to hope for anything, not going to want anything, because that is less painful. So all of those things can work together to create lack of motivation, drive, enthusiasm, industry. And so I hope what you see is for a child in complex trauma, many of them have had all of those things. And so for many people from complex trauma, they have had this drive and motivation knocked out of them. Now, again, on the surface, they might still be high functioning. They might still be performing, but not from an internal healthy place. They're high performing for other reasons, trying to earn acceptance, trying to earn validation, fear of being punished, fear of being looked down on, not from this healthy place of drive, purpose, industry, enthusiasm about life. So let's just talk about how does this manifest itself as the child gets older. So some emotional symptoms that you can see is there's an apathy in the child, and it might come across as a mild depression or even a more serious depression. And it's just the child doesn't care about life anymore. They're not motivated to do things. There's the stuff that other children love doing, hobbies, sports, they're just not that motivated. So an apathy is there. And then a hopelessness is there that why try? They believe won't change anything, so why try? So there's just a sense of hopelessness, and then shame, a low self-worth. It must be my fault, I'm not good enough. And so there's a real shame element. And then they often will have a lot of guilt that other kids are starting to progress in school, starting to achieve things with getting jobs, and they begin to realize that they're falling behind. They're not progressing like other kids, so they have an internal guilt around that. And then when you try to get them to do stuff, they get irritated and frustrated when they feel pressure to perform, to get going, to act. And then behavioral symptoms would be, you see a lot of procrastination early on. So even simple tasks, they put off doing them. I'll do it another time. Something is always procrastinating. And then as they start getting older, they get these responsibilities, but then it's like they try to get out of them. They withdraw from them. So they're avoiding working. They're avoiding doing chores. They're avoiding connecting with people. It's avoidance becomes their way of life, of anything that would demand something of them. And then just a low interest in extracurricular activities, hobbies, social stuff, low productivity. So they do their job, but there's just often they start a job and don't finish it, or they just kind of do it, the bare minimum. You see that there. And then their whole avoidance stuff leads to then excessive sleep, time on their phones, social media, watching TV, playing video games. So they get this very active, solitary world where it's just them and technology, them and the TV. And that becomes their existence. And then there's some cognitive symptoms as well. So they have difficulty concentrating because their mind just wanders. They just can't focus because they're just not motivated. And a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of criticizing themselves, a lot of why bother, I'm going to fail anyways. And then you see an indecisiveness. When they have to make decisions, they're not sure what to do. And so they kind of vacillate back and forth between maybe this, maybe that, don't know. And they just put off making decisions. And then you see catastrophic thinking, which is, oh, worst case scenario, something terrible is going to happen. Always assuming the worst. And then physical symptoms would be low energy, often just tired all the time, even when they have adequate sleep. You see there's changes in their appetite, changes in their sleep patterns, so they want to eat all the time or not at all, want to sleep all the time or not, they can't sleep. There's just a sluggish body language. So they're just, you look at them and they're just slouched a little bit. They move slowly. It's like something, they're carrying this weight on their shoulders. And then there might be psychosomatic complaints. So headaches, stomach aches, body tension becomes part of what they go through. And then relationally, they start just withdrawing more and more because connection, interacting with people, they just lose the drive even for that. So they go more and more into isolation. They have difficulty committing to relationships, to plans, to goals. And then an overdependence on others to tell them what to do, to give them direction into life. So it just starts again. There's ramifications into all of life. Some of you can relate to this. Maybe nobody's ever talked about it before, but as I'm talking about it, you're going, yeah, that's me. I do all the right things, but man, I'm just lifeless inside. No motivation, no drive. How do I fix it? I want you to use a comparison. So if you think of a person with anorexia nervosa, so a child has a natural hunger drive, but if you don't meet that hunger drive, you don't eat food, you suppress that, over time, that hunger drive will go away. And so you won't even be hungry anymore. That's anorexia nervosa. The same is true with the drive for life, for exploration, for play, for purpose. If you have that knocked out of you, after a while, it just goes away. So what we're trying to do is revive a drive that has been killed. How do you do that with anorexia nervosa? You have to get the person to eat food on a schedule like taking a medication. So at 12 o'clock, you're going to have this little bit of food. Now, what you realize is they're not going to enjoy it. They don't want it. They don't feel the need for it, but they do it. They take their dose because it's required medication. But what hopefully begins to happen over time is it begins to awaken the body's drive again of hunger and, oh, I need this. I want this. This is good for me. Now that's going to take time. That's going to take doing this, taking your dose of food regularly over a period of time as you gradually reawaken and retrain the brain to want food and to have a hunger drive. The same is true with the drive for life, for exploration, for play, for meaningful stuff. You have to force yourself to do things that you don't feel like doing, that don't interest you, that you don't have any motivation for, but you do it because you know it's good for you. You do it with your whole heart. You give yourself to it. And as you do it in small little steps over time, you begin to reawaken your drive for life. But with that, you need also connection to people who are safe. So connection coupled with hobby, a job, giving yourself to others, taking care of your own needs, engaging in life. You do those things and connect with people, the drive begins to reawaken. That's what we're looking at. So look at what is it that I think would be enjoyable. Maybe some of the stuff I might have enjoyed in my childhood and my teen years. Let's go back and do that again. Take on manageable. Don't try to do everything all at once. Just take on one or two things. Set some achievable goals that I am going to once a day go for a walk, once a day work on a jigsaw puzzle, once a day listen to some music, once a day journal, whatever. But begin to do those things in achievable steps. Set achievable goals for yourself. If you make mistakes, don't go to beating yourself up, but you begin to reframe mistakes as opportunities to learn, not as evidence that you're a failure. And you might need help with this. Somebody who's going to be able to walk beside you, encourage you, validate you, say, yeah, you're good at that. Hey, you didn't do it perfectly this time. That's okay. That doesn't mean you failed. Let's learn from this. So you probably are going to need a mentor or a surrogate parent to help you with this. Finally, I would just say, I would encourage you to get therapy, to take a course like our LIFT course to really help you get to those core issues that caused all that drive to get knocked out of you, so that you deal with the trauma that knocked out that key essential drive, so that that's going to be part of reawakening that drive. If this has helped you, please like, subscribe, share, comment. I just hope it really points you in the right direction to be able to go back to that key area of your childhood development and begin to go, wow, that's me. I see it now. I need to repair this. I need to really focus on healing this part of me that was so badly damaged. So thank you again for being with me. Have a great day. See you next time.